This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Everybody Lies, our House MD podcast, where we dive into the used needles and scalpels, find the dead babies,
and many expensive medical tests for no reason.
Yep. Well, they admit in this episode that they're going to turn a profit on this.
Yeah, they're pretty excited about that because they're working with the feds. This episode's called Mob Rules, I think. Is that correct?
That is correct.
The opening scene is for pretty quickly. It's a guy in witness protection. He's watching a basketball game while his lawyer/brother is kind of pacing around. He's trying to talk him out of going to the feds because this guy is some pretty high-level mobster or mid-level at least. At the very least, he could turn over a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
And then so he's watching it, he's just basically focusing on the game. He's like, I have money on this one. And then all of a sudden he just starts going into a spasm and then he just kind of just collapses.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, his brother goes, I think he's hurt or I think he's sick when he's convulsing. And I don't think anyone thinks he's in a perfect state of health right now.
Right. The one federal agent's hey, you're either dying or you're testifying.
Right, and it's very up in the air at this point. Then we cut to the intro. I really like the intro. On a lot of shows, I skip it, but I like the music and I like the kind of montage of its with different scenes. It's a lot of still frames and stuff. It's really
yeah. The Massive Attack. I believe it's called Teardrop. It's a good song.
I think it is Massive Attack, which is the street artist Banksy is allegedly a member of Massive Attack.
Yep.
Massive Attack.
That's correct.
And of course, I probably should skip the intro because every time I see Bryan Singer's name, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot.
Oh, Bryan Singer.
Yeah, so we go to the office, and Cuddy is there, and she's being grilled over the numbers by Chi McBride's character. I can't remember.
Edward Vogler.
Vogler, that's it, yeah. And it's pretty funny because he's asking her about the numbers, and I don't know if she's being evasive or she just doesn't know. He's basically saying, I don't think House is making a profit. And contrary to what he said during his his speech about his father with Alzheimer's, he intends to run the hospital as a business, which I don't think is a great idea because I don't think hospitals are... Well, I guess if you buy an entire hospital, you probably can make a decent profit, but he doesn't seem like he's really hurting for the money to do this. I mean, I don't know if later they reveal an ulterior motive or something. That would be my guess. Maybe House misdiagnosed his dad or something. That's just sheer guess.
I'm not telling you, but go ahead.
But yeah, so he's really grilling her, and then, House pops in and he has a subpoena. Oh, maybe he doesn't pop in, but House has a subpoena. I think he does come to the office. He's like, yeah, what do you want me to do with it? Because the feds are, basically compelling him to take this patient on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a court order for him to treat. I guess it's a situation like last week where they researched who the best was, at least in the area, because obviously New York, New Jersey, they're Italian mob, they're in that area.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there's a lot of great doctors in New York, but I mean, we have no reason to believe he's not the best doctor on the planet.
Yeah.
From, everything we've seen from him and everything we will see.
Yep. So they've got a court order for him to do it. He doesn't want to do it. Chi McBride's oh, how horrible. You got to treat a patient. And Cuddy says, I'm not getting you out of this. You got three options. Hire a lawyer, treat him, or go to jail. So he ends up treating him. He does a bunch of tests. He's in a coma at this point. Joey is the guy's name. I can't remember their last name. It's something Italian, but
Smith.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the fake name they give him. But he does the tests. Poke him in the foot with a needle and everything, and he says he's on an 8 on the coma scale. I'm guessing out of 10. I don't know how the coma scale works. But apparently it's a pretty fucking deep coma. So.
Yeah, we can assume it's up to 10. That's a bad one.
Right.
So they do their diagnostics. They find that he has it's a hematoma. I think is that a blood clot?
It's it's a he's got a hematoma, which is a area of bleeding basically. So it can be it's not a clot, but it's like a mass of bleeding, almost like a bruise, but more insidious.
Yeah, so they find an indication that he had suffered a head injury earlier. He was hit with a tire iron, but he claims like he was changing his tire and it hit him in the head.
Yeah, about 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, from when this episode takes place.
Yeah, so Foreman, being a neurologist, he proposes drilling a hole in his head to, relieve some of the pressure, get some of the, fluids out of there. And then as he says that, the patient is awake, and he goes, yeah, I don't really want you to drill inside my head.
Right.
Which is a shock to everybody, because I don't know how he's awake. I mean, I guess they explain that. I don't recall the answer, but yeah, he's up. And then his brother, he finds that he's awake, and he's like, he's like, you can't discharge him, because if you discharge him, I'm going to destroy everything you like, person by.
Yeah,
which is funny, because House he asked him before this if he's the mafia, and then after that, he's like, oh, I guess you are the mafia.
Right. It's so funny too, because when he's like, I'll take away everything that you love, bit by bit until there's nothing left. I'm thinking like, okay, well that's not much. Like. Not a tough job, because there's not much that House loves. I guess he could take away his ability to practice medicine somehow, like that would, and maybe his pills. Those would be like the two things. But yeah, he does make that threat, because he's basically like, look, I want him to stay in the hospital, because I want to convince him not to go into witness protection, because he's afraid he's going to get killed, like that the feds aren't really going to be able to protect him, and then he's going to get killed at some point, and he doesn't want him to testify, so he wants time to convince him not to.
Right. Yeah. So House basically, is trying to keep him in the hospital because he doesn't want to be murdered. Although I'm not 100% sure that's the only reason he wants him, and he doesn't think that his issue is resolved, because House, I mean, I'm sure he cares about his own life, but he doesn't really seem to be too impressed by the mafioso.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but, unfortunately, while he's, having this discussion, he finds out that the patient has been discharged by Vogler, who, of course, is not a doctor.
Yeah, Vogler called and said, hey, he's out of the coma now. He's good. And
he's just trying to appease the feds and, have them, put a good check mark in their book for him.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then sure enough, 2 hours later, the same patient comes back into the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately for House, it's right in front of Vogler and Cuddy.
Right. So, and he makes Vogler look like, kind of a moron. The thing that I noticed about this is, Chi McBride is a very tall man, and Hugh Laurie is almost as tall as him. So I was like, I didn't realize this before, but I'm like, well, Hugh Laurie's a pretty tall guy too then. But that's the thing I noticed in that scene. So from there, I'm trying to think. So they go through. He's awake at this point, though. They do some tests of his liver, and they find out that that there's some damage there. He has hepatitis C. House points out that it's chronic hepatitis C as opposed to acute, and that because this stuff is so sudden onset, that the hepatitis C wouldn't cause it. He also points out that he didn't tell Vogler that the guy was out of a coma. Somebody must have, and it must have been one of the three of them. Obviously, money's on Chase at this point. For sure. He's the weaseliest of them. House is being a little guarded, but Chase argues that hepatitis C is the most likely cause, and he wants to treat him for it. And House says, okay, fine, treat him for hepatitis C, but get a biopsy of his liver, so that I can see, what else is going on in there.
Yeah, and they go to tell his brother, I think it's Chase, actually, that tells him it's Hep C.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, how can you get it? He's like, oh, you can get it from, lots of ways you can get it. He goes, you can get it from needles, sex, and like his brother immediately picks it. Whoa, you can't say that he has Hep C. People think he was gay or something like that, which apparently in the mafia is a very bad.
Oh yeah, yep. I guess especially at this time, I suppose.
I'm sure now it is too.
Right.
But yeah, so he he's saying don't put it on his chart, don't treat him. He can't. This is like a death sentence essentially. If he's in prison or not, he's going to be killed for.
Yeah, and he smacks Chase, which is hilarious.
Yeah, and Chase, of course, does nothing.
Right.
I feel that if he had done that to Foreman would have fucked him up.
Oh, absolutely. But so he comes. The brother comes to house, and he says, "Hey, your people are like spreading lies or whatever." And House says, "Hey, he's got it. Let's say he got raped when he was in prison." Could have got.
Yeah, House finds that he has jailhouse tats, so he knows he was in jail. So he's guessing, he probably was raped. But again, that's not any better for his.
Right. So he's like, well, what are we gonna do? And he's like, I don't know if you know about this, but the mob sometimes keeps 2 sets of books. And he's like, he's like, oh yeah, And he goes, are you jerking me around? And he goes, hey, doctors are busy sometimes. They forget to write things down. So he agrees to treat him without writing it up, which prompts him, like, very quickly. I don't know how fast he was able to get all this set up, but House goes down to the garage to leave with Wilson. He's talking to Wilson, and his car's gone, but a fucking Corvette is in its place, like a 1965 classic Corvette.
And it's a note on it says it's a gift from the Arnello brothers?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Something like that, yeah. So yeah, he's teasing Dr. Wilson because he's like, I can't give it back. It's a gift. I don't want to insult him.
Yeah, he's like, what do you think he'd do? And like Wilson's like, he might hurt you.
Right, because obviously they're both really looking forward to tooling around in this classic car.
Right. So he keeps it, and I'm trying to think what happens after that. Oh yeah. They discover that the liver biopsy comes back. It shows, I can't remember what it shows, but it's like elevated bilirubin, I think, or something like that. It's not the Hep C. It points to a proximate cause, an acute cause. And he's got a high level of estrogen in his body. His white count's low because he was a smoker, as House learns from looking at his chest X-ray. And he says, the white count being low lets me know that he's quitting smoking, and he's taking some sort of this lozenge to help him from a Chinese place.
Yeah, it's like a website that he got, like some Chinese herbal medicine that's supposed to help him, kick his head.
Right. So, he House is walking up to the detectives and or not the detectives, the federal agents, and one of them is kind of grilling the other one. He's like, "Hey, your wife just deposited $3,000 in your bank account. Where'd you get it?" Like all this stuff, because they suspect when they do the liver biopsy, they find toxins. And, they say he's, being poisoned. They use that's the other thing that we forgot. His liver wasn't functioning properly because of the Hep C. There's toxins in it. They don't know what to do. He's either going to, because they say he might need a liver, but he's only got 2 hours, before liver failure. So, he could die.
Because they're not quite sure what the poison is at this point.
Yeah.
So they come with naturally this show requires a transplant, and it's like you have to get a liver in 2 hours. That's the testing alone. I think it takes 4 hours. So
right.
House shockingly comes up with an unconventional idea, and they bring in a pig.
Yep. And this is because I've looked it up when I've watched this show before. This actually is a thing. They don't do it often, but it's basically like dialysis, but for your liver. There is no actual dialysis for your liver, but pigs are so similar to human beings, their physiology, especially their liver and their circulatory system, that you can run your blood through a pig's liver and it will filter out, like just like your liver would. It will filter out all the toxins, and then they return the blood back to his body. That helps, clean everything so that his his system sort of resets, basically.
And then House, he goes, it's probably this pill that he took, some, crazy like Chinese herb,
Yep.
and then so after this, he's stable. And they're like, well, he has Hep C, but, it's not charted, which is a very bad thing in a lot of ways, because if he goes to a random doctor, he could just probably be killed immediately.
Right. Yeah. So the problem was they put him on interferon for the Hep C. Yeah, and the interferon interfered with one of the chemicals in this this Chinese herb that he was taking, and basically let it run rampant through his body, and that's why it affected him so much, they say. So
they actually cut to the clinic here, which I remember this distinctly, but why don't we do the clinic at the end of this, because so then House kind of confronts Chase. He basically tells him that he thinks he's the one who's ratted him out to Vogler, because from what he says, someone ratted him out to Vogler. I kind of felt that Vogler just kind of figured it out, but maybe someone did rat him out.
Right.
But yeah, so he's saying, I don't trust you. He basically gives him shit constantly about this.
Mm-hmm.
And then so they think he has a sensitivity to red meat for some reason, and they think it's this thing called ornithine transcarbamylase deficiency, but he's not really sure, because the estrogen level is just really he just does not understand the estrogen and why it would be so high. He tells his brother that the only reason that you would have higher estrogen is if you took estrogen. So his brother's like, what, my brother is going to become a woman now? Or, he's freaking out against the homosexual thing again.
Mm-hmm. And basically he says, hey, there's this chemical, or this drug, it's an aphrodisiac for gay men, on the same site.
Yeah, it's a lozenge.
Same Chinese website as these quit smoking drugs or candy, and that hey, if he took it because he's gay, that would explain it, and this OTD would explain everything else. So the cure is to have him to stop all the treatment and just let his body recover from the overload of protein. But if House is wrong and he's not gay, then the estrogen is being caused by something else that they don't know, and if they stop the treatment, then he'll die. So the brothers got to make this call. And House points out that, hey, witness protection is a big chance for him to, maybe live a life he's always wanted to live that he could never tell anybody.
He could start fresh, and this could be part of the insistence on being an informant. So the brother eventually concedes. He goes, okay, maybe he is gay, and then so they start the treatment, and sure enough, it works.
Yep, he wakes up, and he tries to have a conversation with him about it. His brother is, I guess, as understanding and nice as he could be in this situation.
But he's like, oh, maybe they mix the pills up, and they both kind of agree that I think they both know the truth. But they're like, we're just going to say that it's these pills. We're not going to have. This is not a conversation two Italian men in the mafia are going to have.
Right. And he says, hey, all I need to know is that you're my brother. He doesn't say, and I love you, but I mean, that's basically, the underlying message of it. You're my brother. I support you. If you think
he goes, if you want to testify, he knows it'll make him happy, because he knows his brother's gay at this point. And he's like, hey, this will make him happy. He's my brother. I don't care, what, centuries of our code and that kind of shit mean. He's my brother. It's like a very, very nice thing. You don't really expect it, but I mean, it's like, he's like, okay, go ahead and live your life, I guess.
Yep. And,
good.
I was just going to say, House, learns because Wilson tells him that that Cuddy and Vogler have been meeting about him for the past 2 days.
And then Cuddy comes down and she says, well, Vogler wants to fire everybody in the diagnostics department. And he's like, well, she points out to Vogler that ophthalmology doesn't make, money either, but he really does not, care for House. Again, I'm assuming there's an ulterior motive, but we'll see, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
And then so, she says, you have to fire one of your teammates. And, that's kind of like the cliffhanger at the end.
Yeah, she fought for him. She said that he can't fire her. She doesn't.
She's only one of 3 women who are chief of medicine at a hospital.
Right, and that she knows where all the bodies are buried, all the stuff that's not on the books, all the stuff that he's gonna need to know. And House points out, he's like, hey, guys like this are a quick study. In 6 months, he's not gonna need you. And she's like, I'll worry about it then. Right. But the compromise that she makes is that he's got to do more clinic duty, which I guess provides more for the hospital, and he has to fire one of the staff.
Right. And then the clinic, I really enjoyed this. I remember this. I've seen this episode, at least this part. I kind of remember the mafia not subplot, the main plot. But in the clinic, there's a guy looks like he's in his early 20s. House assumes he's the parent because he's holding an infant, but he says he's the older brother, and the parents went to Barbados, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, they're clearly a well-to-do family.
Yeah, but he says he has a wheezing, which House, correctly points out is more of a whistling, and so he puts some forceps into his nose and he pulls out a little toy police. Mm-hmm. Then they come back later. The mafia guy is barging in, and the baby's doing it again. The mafia guy yells at the baby to stop. That he stops, and then he pulls out let's see what he pulls. He pulls out a fireman, I think.
Yeah, fireman is next. Yep.
And then he comes back again, and House hold on a second. He gets a magnet out because he's like, this kid's got a lot of shit in his nose. Mm-hmm. And there was a fire truck, I think it was also pulled out in a cat. So the guy's like, oh man, I'm sorry, my brother's so stupid. He goes, well, that's genetic, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
But the House is like, actually, I think he's really smart because if you think about it, it's like the cat got stuck in his nose, then they sent a fireman, a policeman, and a fire truck to rescue him. So he actually thinks it's very clever on the boy's part.
Right.
And the older brother points out that he shouldn't have showed him the trick where he pulls the quarter out of his nose last week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, another thing of interest is Cameron admits that she finds House attractive, which they rip on her for, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, that is funny. When she especially Foreman is like very much delighting in. Do you get like butterflies in your stomach, and stuff when you see him?
And then also another thing is another funny scene is when House and Wilson are out in the Corvette. Wilson's just ripping. He's like, this has more than one gear. He's
right.
like, driving like the stereotypical grandma or whatever, or me because I drive. So
yeah, he's like, have you ever driven an automobile? There are four gears.
Yeah, but I like this episode. I'm really enjoying the Vogler. I wasn't sure that I would, but I'm excited to see what happens in the next episode, especially as far as the firing does, or I assume it does not happen because I think I see or maybe one gets hired back later because I recall seeing all 3 of them in later episodes. But yeah, it's interesting, and I hope he fires Chase because who likes Chase?
Exactly. I think Chase is probably if there was a snitch, it probably was Chase. So
yeah,
it seems
like he tries to fire Chase, and then he won't let him because he's a snitch. And also another point is he tries to make everybody in the hospital think that he thinks Foreman's the rat or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But he knows Foreman wouldn't do it though because he knows Foreman Foreman is him.
Yeah, he's like, no, I know that you wouldn't turn on me for Vogler because. You don't know what's going to happen with Vogler. He's like, if you're going to turn on me, it's going to be because you know where you're going to land.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, I enjoyed the episode. Looking forward to the next one.
Yep, it's a very, very good episode. And like I said, I enjoy the Vogler arc. I'm glad that it didn't go the entire series because I think it would have been really hard to do stuff with Vogler the entire series, but I enjoy the arc.
Point where it's like, yeah, I'm glad that it's only 6 episodes because it's like, oh no, you're in trouble. No, I'm not. If that continued for however many seasons, 8 or 9 or 1,000, I don't know, right. That'd be very tiresome. But I appreciate knowing that he's only in there for 6 episodes. That makes me happy.
Yep. And I like Chi McBride a lot. I think he's a really good actor. So
yeah, he's really good.
Well, that is our episode for the week. We will see you next week. Talk to you later. Bye.
See you later.